Uh-oh. I can help you with that, and so can they.
Some of them went right.
Good afternoon, everyone. We will get started here in just a moment. We do have a quorum. We're going to do introductions. Be back in just a moment.
Yeah, I printed out what they sent us on the, in case I wanted to write on it.
Start. Okay. Great. We're muting and recording. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm delighted to have so many of you here, and we're going to go around and introduce ourselves. We were just helping my co-chair, Senator Townsend, find his way in the building, and I know Representative Bombach is online, Senator Pettyjohn, Representative Ramon, and of course our cabinet secretaries, Devanius and Geisenberg. In the meantime, I will defer to round robin, or you want to go around the room?
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Faith Rentz, the Director for the Statewide Benefits Office in the Department of Human Resources.
Okay.
My name is Carol Mike. I'm the Executive Assistant to Director Rentz.
Hi, Trinidad Navarro, Delaware Department of Insurance.
Wayne Emsley, retiree from Newcastle County, the governor's representative from there.
I'm Dave Craig. I'm the retiree representative from Kent County. In a previous life, I spent a couple of years as a pensioner.
Good afternoon. I'm Leanne Hinkle, Deputy Director of the Statewide Benefits Office.
Great. And we have others here, of course, from the offices and also Highmark and the public in the audience. And then I'll defer to the actual members of our committee. We'll go to our Secretary of HR. You want to say hello?
Good afternoon, everybody. Claire DeMattias.
And our Secretary of Finance.
Good afternoon, Rick Geisenberger, Secretary of Finance.
And I don't know if our Director of O&P has been online yet. I know he was coming out of a previous meeting. Director Cave, not here yet. And then certainly I'll turn to my legislative colleagues. My co-chair, Representative Bombach, are you there, sir? Do you want to unmute?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, recovering from surgery. I'm gonna have my camera off for the meeting, but yes, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're glad that you're well with us, sir. And then from the House Chamber, also Representative Ramon. I don't think he's here. And then I see Senator Pettyjohn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Brian Pettyjohn from Georgetown.
Something critical and just in time, if the next senator and my co-chair,
Hello.
Senator Townsend.
Hello.
Good timing. Uh-oh, we have a hello coming in. I don't know who that
Can
was.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Stella Parker Selby. Stella
was-
Parker Selby on.
Oh, Representative Parker Selby, good to
Yeah,
have you.
I'm in the car. I'm in my car, so I'll be listening more than talking.
Okay, well, we are glad that you were here. We have Sussex in the house then with you and the Senator Pettyjohn. And we've done around our table here, and then on screen, we have Jeff Tashner. If you're there, sir.
Yes, I am Lieutenant Governor Jeff Tashner, Executive Director, Delaware State Education Association.
Awesome, thank you, sir. And then Denise Allen, are you there, ma'am?
Hi, yes, I'm here. I am the Sussex County State Educators Retiree Representative.
Awesome, and then Michael Bagato.
About 20 plus years old. Madam Lieutenant Governor, Mike Bagato, Executive Director, AFSCME Council 81.
Thank you, sir. And then Bill Overly. Oh, you got to unmute, Bill. Find that button, right? There you go.
Got it. Apologize. Good afternoon, Madam Lieutenant Governor. I'm an appointee of Senator Sokola to serve on the committee, and I represent the Delaware State Troopers Association.
Wonderful. And I don't know if we've missed anyone. I hope not. I believe for the official committee and
Director Kate.
oh, Director Kate has now joined. Director Kate.
Ron K, Director, Office of Management and Budget.
Thank you, sir. So I've gone through the official and we have a number of guests. And if I miss anyone, you know, later questions remote, we're going to be looking at the signals of your hands when there's time for our community and public participation. Everyone should have received well in advance our call to order and our quick introductions, which we have now accomplished. Agenda item number 1. And now we're going to go to agenda item number 2, and I'm going to defer to Faith if she wants to go over a few items here. And before I do, I do want to say for those members present and those listening in, I want to turn to my left and to Paul on the screen, my vice chairs, to say, you know, thank you. This is important work. And I want to level set. So if you are at home having a cup of coffee, this is the time to really wake up and hear what I'm about to say. We have heard from the public. We have heard from retirees. We value, we really respect, and really genuinely care about all the retirees and the concerns. And that led us to Senate Bill 29, which Faith is going to go over in a few minutes. We recognize that you need to have input, that you wanted to be at the table, and that considerations be made, that it was loud and clear. We've heard that you would like to consider a choice, and that your participation and input be incorporated. So I just want you to know that's one of the reasons I agreed to be here to chair, you know, with my health policy background, as a nurse, former legislator, to be able to facilitate the work. I know there's been a lot of hearings, a lot of past meetings. We are not going to re-go to the past, but I'm hoping we level set and can really meet and talk and come up with some really good recommendations. No pressure, thanks to the General Assembly. Thank you guys very much. They gave us less than 2 months. So in 2 months, we're going to come up with hopefully some very incredibly important recommendations. And that's what this committee is about. So Faith can take it away from here to kind of talk about what the charge is and how we go forward. And rules of the game, those who are members obviously get to raise their hand and ask questions. And I would just be mindful with the public. We will have opportunity not only today, but lots of opportunity, I'm sure, for comments. So I don't want anyone to think they're going to go unheard. And actually, before I go to Faith, I would be in bad deference if I didn't talk to my chairs, co-chairs. Senator Townsend, if you have anything to add, sir.
No, not just briefly. Thank you very much, Governor, for your willingness to chair and to help find a solution.
I know that this obviously for many months now has been a key focus for a lot of people whose healthcare depends on it and their health experience is critical. I know talking to Commissioner Navarro, his office has fielded tons of calls and requests more information about what's going on. And a lot of other people around the table here have been involved in these conversations and analyses for not just a year or two, but frankly, for more than 10 years or 15 years, trying to figure out how this all fits together over the long term. So complicated and very important for each individual retiree, no doubt. I want to thank again Senator Governor Hall Long for your willingness to step up and share this, and Representative Bombach, as always, for willingness on the legislative side to work on items. So overall, I'm gonna try to not speak too much over the course of all of our meetings, because I know that hearing from individuals is really critical, but really wanted to appreciate the chance to say something in the beginning. I don't know if we go to Representative Bombach.
Yeah, Representative Bombach, he is home there. If you have anything to add, sir, and if not, we'll jump in and get started.
I'll just say that I'm again pleased to be here, and I do think it's as has been said, we have heard. I think every elected official in Delaware has heard the frustration over the past year or two, and that is why we are here today, and at least for the next 2 months, really dedicated to dig down deep, find out all that's involved here, look at as many alternatives as we can, and see if we can come up with recommendations for the best path forward for our state and our state retirees. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I am a mindful master of time. And I would think that my other members of the General Assembly, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead to Faith. I just had our co-chair speak at this time. I don't ever want them to think I don't get them a chance to speak. But if you all are okay, Brian, give me a signal. You're okay. All right. We're going to go ahead to you, Faith, then.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Senator Townsend and Representative Bombach.
Can you all hear her? She's got a nice calm voice.
I do want to ask subcommittee members and members participating today from the public. We want to make sure that the information that's shared today is heard loudly and clearly. We are still navigating the technical challenges with conducting meetings both in person and virtually. So I would ask that everyone participating virtually, please keep your audio turned off and muted when others are speaking, so that can come through clearly. So having said that, this is the first meeting of the Retiree Healthcare Benefits Advisory Subcommittee. So I do just have a couple of housekeeping items that I would like to walk through today with the committee. But before even doing that, I just want to share a little bit more, I think, about my role and the contributions that I and my staff here in the Statewide Benefits Office hope to make with the work of the subcommittee. Of course, as you all know, we serve as the State Employee Benefits Committee, and their subcommittee serve as their administrative arm. But the real heart of what we do here in the benefits office is to take care of our employees and our retirees. And this is often through some of the most difficult and challenging times of their lives. So seeing this through to an end that meets the needs of both our members and ensures that we can continue to provide the best healthcare benefits to our current and future retirees is truly our priority. So having said that, I want to dig in to just a couple of housekeeping items. We do have Stacy Stewart here from the Department of Justice that is participating virtually today. She is filling in for our primary Deputy Attorney General, Adria Martinelli. But I just want to make note of that for the subcommittee members in the event that there are questions. The presentation that I'm about to walk through and the business rules were prepared by Adria. And I agreed in her absence to walk through this with the subcommittee today. So just to level set, why are we here? We are here as a result of Senate Bill 29, which was signed into law by Governor Carney on January 26. Senate Bill 29 amended the State Employee Benefits Consolidation Act. There were several changes, most notably and specific to today's meeting is the establishment of the Retiree Healthcare Benefits Advisory Subcommittee. So there were specific duties and responsibilities defined in Senate Bill 29, and I'd like to go through those in detail. I'm going to read verbatim from the law what those are, because they really are going to set forth, the work of this subcommittee. So the first is we will be conducting public meetings and receiving public comment about current and future state retiree healthcare benefits. And this will include the previously proposed Medicare Advantage plan. It's also taking into consideration the previous work of both the State Employee Benefits Committee and the Retirement Benefits Study Committee. The group will consider how reporting and analyses regarding the Medicare Advantage plans nationwide relate to the terms of the previously proposed Medicare Advantage plan. We will study, review, and evaluate the fiscal and other implications of the extension of the existing Medicare supplement plan, which is currently in effect until January 1st of 2024. We will evaluate options for continuing to provide strong state retiree healthcare benefits in a fiscally sustainable way, including options to maintain their current coverage. And last but certainly not least, by May 1st of 2023, we will issue findings and recommendations to the Governor and the General Assembly as they relate to the fiscal year 2024 state budget. So with regards to the State Employee Benefits Committee, this subcommittee is here to support the work of the State Employee Benefits Committee, which we often refer to as the SEBC. This SEBC's authority is defined in Chapter 20, Title 29, Chapters 52 and 96. The SEBC has the authority to control and manage all employee statewide health benefit programs. That authority does include selection of carriers or third-party administrators that have been deemed to offer the best plan to satisfy the interests of the state and its employees and pensioners in carrying out the intent of chapters 52 and 96. The SEBC also has the authority to contract on either a self-insured or a fully insured basis. And we will be talking more about the differences as we move through our meetings. This committee is also, as a public body, required to follow the Freedom of Information Act, also referred to as FOIA. The FOIA statute is defined also in Title 29, sections 10,001 through 10,007. This applies to all public bodies, so including the SEBC and all subcommittees. So with regards to public meetings, all meetings of the Retiree Healthcare Benefits Advisory Subcommittee will be held in a public setting. We will offer both a virtual and in-person option. Meetings will always be open to the public, and we will always have a public comment period on each meeting agenda. I want to caution subcommittee members with regards to discussion of outside of business of the subcommittee outside of these public meetings. Under the FOIA statute, we do need to be mindful that conducting business, particularly where a quorum is not present, could be in violation of FOIA. So as a best practice, we would recommend that we don't discuss the business of the subcommittee outside of those public meetings. Because this is a public body, we are required to provide meeting notice and agendas, and we are required to post those 7 days in advance. Minutes will be maintained and available to the public. The statewide benefits office will handle notice, agenda, and meeting minutes, which will need to be approved by the subcommittee at each subsequent meeting. As a reminder, and under FOIA, as a public body, documents will be produced to the subcommittee and made publicly available. And as I mentioned earlier, the statewide benefits office serves as the administrative arm. So in the event that there are any Freedom of Information Act requests associated with the work of the subcommittee, those will be handled by the benefits office. As a reminder to subcommittee members, emails could be subject to FOIA and required to be provided in the event of a FOIA request. So as a general practice, we would recommend that emails among subcommittee members be initiated by the benefits office as the administrative arm, and that they be primarily related to administrative matters of the committee's or subcommittee's work. With regards to attendance at the subcommittee meetings, appointed members may not attend the designated. This is a really important distinction defined in Senate Bill 29, which requires now that both the State Employee Benefits Committee as well as the Retiree Subcommittee require appointed members to attend and cannot send a designee. So just a reminder there, and appreciate everyone's understanding that will add a layer of complexity with regards to scheduling and availability, because again, we need to make sure we can assure quorum at the meetings. And we know our subcommittee members have a lot of other commitments on their calendars. So again, quorum, the majority of the subcommittee members must be in attendance. However, under FOIA, that can be virtually or in person. And then I want to talk just for a moment about code of conduct. This is also defined in Title 29.
Faith, it's Claire. Can you go back to the
Yes.
quorum? Based on the number of members, what is a quorum that we have to maintain throughout the meeting?
Sure, great question, Secretary. So there are 15 members on the subcommittee, so we would need 8 members for a quorum.
Throughout the meeting. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then again, I just want to touch on code of conduct, which is also defined in Title 29, that's specifically in Chapter 5806. As subcommittee members, you are honorary state officials. As such, we would ask that you conduct yourself in a way which will not raise suspicion among the public that you are violating the public's trust or conducting yourselves in a way that would reflect unfavorably upon the state. Also, as an honorary state official, you can not incur any obligation of any nature which is in substantial conflict with the proper performance of such duties in the public interest. And you are not to accept gifts. Gifts do have some qualifications, but again, as a best practice, we would recommend that you avoid those. With regards to conflicts of interest defined in the Code of Conduct, you are also bound by prohibitions related to conflicts of interest. Therefore, you cannot represent a private enterprise with respect to any matter that comes before the state. And for 2 years after termination of your appointment, you cannot represent a private enterprise before the state with respect to matters responsible for in your subcommittee role. I'm just highlighting the most applicable sections of the Code of Conduct. So in wrap up, I did want to mention a question that came up from a newly appointed State Employee Benefits Committee member. We thought this was a worthy question to provide a response to the subcommittee as well, which was, could I be sued in my role as a subcommittee member? And I just want to share with the subcommittee that the committee is the entity that makes decisions, speaks with one voice, which is why as a public body, we must have a quorum for any decisions or actions that are taken by the subcommittee. But you are not liable as individuals. If you are named as a defendant in any litigation, you are indemnified in legal defense as long as your actions are consistent with legal advice of our Deputy Attorney General. Your defense is thereby covered. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to go through those rules. I know that's a little dry, but we thought it was important with the start of the new subcommittee, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments from subcommittee members.
Anyone? Questions, comments from the committee members? We see Representative Ramon is on camera now. Welcome, sir. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Great. No questions, Faith, thank you. We had to go through that component and we'll be moving on. You want to move on to the agenda here in a second? All right, so that moves us to agenda item number 3. And before we go to item number 3, what we wanted to do is to let everyone know that we're going to be presenting different data that are available that were somewhat dated in the past. Know that when we go to these slides, I conferred with our co-chairs that we knew not everybody in the room, not everybody on the committee had an opportunity perhaps to get quite as intimately engaged and as involved and know the numbers and know the issues. And so we asked them to reflect on some slides that were shared in the public, but also with members of the legislature. But I want to make it clear, and I said this to others of the retirees before the meeting started, that we are coming with a very open lens, understanding people want to be heard, have choice. But we also want you to know that the slides that Faith's going to go over today, and perhaps with our Secretary of Finance and our Director of HR, I know the members of the General Assembly know that those numbers are older and a little dated and things will change some, but we wanted you to have the overall trend. And the trend is that, retirees, as Senator Townsend indicated and Representative Bombach and all, we need to value, make sure you have health care. But while we're doing that, what kind of roadmap and plans are we going to come up with and recommend? But in order to make recommendations, this is the first slides that we'll have that to give a little general overview of where we are with some numbers. And then I know we have been asked at the end by some legislators to include perhaps the beginning high level, no detail, of what's happening in some of the other states, which meets the mandate of Senate Bill 29. So I hope that is clear. And so Faith, I guess you'll kick it off and then we'll have our Secretary of HR and Finance give some of their summary, right?
Sure. Yes, happy to do that. Thank you. All right. All right, so we're going to start out with, I'm not going to read through the slides, but again, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I mean, today is really intended to be just an introductory conversation to share some information that has been previously provided that is perhaps of importance to the subcommittee and our members attending from the public today, and then really open up for discussion with the subcommittee members, how we would like to plan for the subsequent meetings, the cadence of those meetings, and really collect input today on the agenda topics for those future meetings, recognizing that, it is important that we give everyone an opportunity to provide input and to weigh in as options are being discussed. And I think most importantly, reflecting back on the information I just shared, recognizing that we do have an obligation to post meeting agendas 7 days in advance and include those agenda topics. I personally am hoping that we can at least reach some agreement before we adjourn today's meeting on when the next meeting would be and generally what those topics for that meeting will be, so that we can make sure that we have that agenda out and everyone's
right. And if we have people who need data, we've got, Secretary Cade, he's here. We've got others who are present, Director Cade, I should say, who would be available.
Yes. So I will not delay again on reviewing the powers, duties and functions of the subcommittee, but
notice that date, May 1.
That's great.
Sometimes we get an extension, but hopefully we will not need one. It's like, lean over here and look at my colleagues in the General Assembly. Let's try to meet that deadline, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with regards to the current status, today and through the end of December of the current plan year, all Medicare retirees participating in the state of Delaware Group Health Insurance Plan have access to the special medic bill supplement coverage that is and continues to be administered by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield Delaware. Just a couple of facts on the number of enrollees in that medical plan. We currently have about 22,300 state pensioners, along with just under 8,400 spouses enrolled in that coverage today. That information came from the pension office, so that's fairly current enrollment information. But again, as we continue discussions, we'll be pulling and refreshing the data and some of the information that we'll be providing to you this afternoon. So as mentioned earlier, the medic fill contract with Highmark is currently set to expire on December 31st. Or I'm sorry, it did expire on December 31st of 2022. However, as a result of the Superior Court ruling halting the implementation of a Medicare Advantage plan that occurred in October, we were permitted to extend the medic fill contract through the end of calendar year 2023. Yes.
Do you still have that option for 24 if nothing gets resolved?
Do you want to do the, what, for the DAG or DOJ here?
So, yeah, so, at this point in time, what I can do, Dave, to kind of answer the question, we have exhausted all renewal years under the former contract. We were able.
Did you all heard the question? I'm not sure if they could hear. Did you all hear his question? Or you need to repeat it? You could hear it, okay.
Yeah, so the question was, where do we stand with the further renewing of the medic fill contract? So at this point, we do not have optional renewal years. It is not clear at this point in time where we stand with the litigation. We would need, the only way we could extend that contract further would be, again, going back to the procurement code and working and negotiating with Highmark for maybe an additional 1-year extension. But there at this point have not been discussions about, the viability of doing that, or if Highmark would be willing to extend that contract for an additional year. Sure. So one of the questions that did come up following the Superior Court ruling in the interim ruling in the fall was what the estimated annual impact would be to the state group health insurance plan to continue the medic fill plan, at least for the current year. And the estimated cost to that is ranging from $70 to $80 million. That's based on the actual claims for the medic fill population for the prior fiscal year. And then just projecting and estimating that forward based on trend, what that would be through the end of calendar year 2023. And again, that is resulting from the state's payment of medical claims for the what is not covered by traditional Part A and Part B Medicare, and it is covered today under the special medical plan. So I just want to share, and again, this is information that has been shared publicly before, but just want to help level set with subcommittee members what the state group health insurance plan has spent in the most recent fiscal year for all of the covered plan participants. That total cost comes in at $1.2 billion. That is including the state subsidy for employees or retirees, both non-Medicare and Medicare, as well as covered dependents. And it includes both the state subsidy as well as the premium portion of premiums that is paid by plan participants. So taking a look at the chart that we have displayed on the video, 1.2 billion is the total, and that includes the total of the 3 columns directly beneath the 1.2. So we spent 115.8 million on the non-Medicare retirees, 132.8 million on the Medicare retirees. And then for the active employees, the state's contribution was 647.1 million. Now, conversely, employees did pay a portion of their premium for that coverage that they were enrolled in. Across those 3 groups, that amount totaled 163.7 million for the fiscal year that ended June 30th of 2022. So when you add those buckets up, if you will, that comes to just under 1.2 billion. That was paid to the group health insurance plan and fund in fiscal year 22 in premiums. So that was the premium that's assessed for each plan participant enrolled in coverage available through the state. Yes, Steve.
So the 132 million for the Medicare retirees, does that include
prescription costs?
It does. It's medical and prescription.
You know how much prescription is?
Good breakdown. I don't know right off the top of my head, Dave, but we can certainly look at that breakdown.
And Dave, we'll probably get into those kind of analyses too, I suspect, as we're looking at, different kinds of options. And again, to Faith and to, our Secretary Dematius and to Geisenberger, I think we wanted to just share with you kind of what we had shared more recently. They had, some of these numbers are going to shift and change a little. Senator?
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. So I certainly know that these are just kind of give idea, but just while we're on it, I'm a little bit confused. The 163.7 is a total of 3 items below it. Why is, for the 1.2 billion, why does that exceed the total of the 3 items below it? So the pre-Medicare retirees, and active employees do not add up to 1.2 billion?
What, the 115, the 132, the 647, and the 163 in total by plan participants totals, it rounded up, it's 1.2 billion.
Okay, gotcha.
So you have to move that other column.
Yes, exactly. So, looking at the total premium spent for last fiscal year, 18.3% of that total spend was paid for the plan participants. So the employees and the retirees, that's their cost share for those premiums. And I believe Bill.
May I add something here?
Yes.
It's somewhat misleading for Medicare retirees. The Medicare retirees, there's no question that the 0.6 million that is paid to the state is accurate. However, the retirees also pay Medicare each month. And for the number of retirees that are presently covered, it's about $62.5 million throughout the year. So it looks like from this chart and this chart alone, it looks like the Medicare retirees are really having a great time. They've spent less than $1 million and gotten $132 million in service, but they spend much more.
Thank you. That's a very, very valid observation and point, which I will go over a little bit more in the next slide about the Medicare Part B premiums that are paid by the Medicare retirees. But before we move on to the next slide, I do believe Bill Overly may have had a question.
Yeah, I did, Faith, thank you. I wanted to go back to page 4, and quite honestly, I spent a lot of time over the weekend trying to digest those numbers. And where the disconnect comes for me is at the subcommittee level, we were presented with information, I believe it was in April of the past year, where the retiree group was actually contributing $36.7 million to the active GHIP members. And I'm trying to understand how this all fits together. I mean, in my mind, it would appear that we're taking the excess CMS or dollars we received from CMS and using those in the general, in the GHIP. So I don't know if you can drill down on that for me so I have a clearer understanding.
Yeah, Bill, happy to do that. And I think that's another good takeaway for discussion at a subsequent meeting. But specific to the numbers on slide 4, what that represents is strictly what the state group health insurance plan is estimated to pay in medical claims only for providing that special medical coverage to members. It does not include any cost for the Medicare Part D prescription benefits that are available to that population, nor does it factor in any subsidies or other payments that the state receives for plan participants in the Medicare Part D drug plan. So we can outline that in a lot more detail in a future meeting, but I just want to make the point that the $70 to $80 million estimate was strictly for providing the MedicFill supplement coverage to the Medicare retirees.
So it didn't take into consideration the monies that we received for EGWIP?
That is correct, because EGWIP, which is employer group waiver plan, which is the state's Medicare Part D prescription drug plan. Any of those subsidies and payments that are received are used as an offset to the Medicare Part D prescription drug expenses, not the Medicare medical expenses that are available through the Medical Supplement Plan.
Okay, we can get into this more deeply,
Yeah.
but again, there was a bit of a disconnect for me because if there are additional CMS funds, whether it's egg whip or the general spend on the part of the state, it seems like we're not netting that out, or we're not taking that into account when you talk about the total spend for retiree health care. So that was what I was wrestling with all weekend. So.
Thank you, Representative O'Brien. And I think, like Faith said, these are the initial conversations. I think we'll get more behind the curtain and some details, in the future meetings. Jeff Tashner, do you have something more briefly there, sir?
Actually, it's on the next slide. Senator Townsend triggered some questions from me. So Faith, I just want to understand the column designated cost. That is, if I understood your explanation, the cost of each of those populations to the group health insurance plan. So what we pay for each of those. Did I get that right?
That is the cost to the state organizations and the Office of Pension in premiums for each of those three populations. So
Okay,
that
so those would, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish. I apologize.
that 1.2 billion and all the other numbers broken down on that slide is strictly illustrating what plan participants and the state is paying towards the premiums that are assessed for the plans that are available to our plan participants. So this is strictly
So
premiums, not claims.
So if we just tried to add up the three numbers below the 1.2, they shouldn't come up to the 1.2. They actually come up to 895 million. We have to add the middle column or the next column, which are the plan member contributions, employees and retirees, to that to try to get close to that 1.2 billion.
You got it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, great. And we'll keep moving along. I think we're okay on time for now. I know the director and the secretary have one time they have to stop, so I'll let you flip and work with them the time.
Yeah, I'm real quick.
Wayne?
Yeah, before moving off of page 5, the statement, active state employees subsidize healthcare costs for state pensioners. I've run the numbers and come up with a completely different conclusion, and we can certainly consider that at a follow-up meeting. But I think if we could just take note of that at this time.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so moving along, slide 6, to Mr. Emsley's earlier point about the Medicare retirees paying for Medicare Part B premium. We did feel it was important to make note of that in our discussion today and to share with the subcommittee and members of the public what that premium has been set at for calendar year 2023, which is $164.90 a month. That is slightly down from $170 in 2022. And then I just want to call out, if we have high income earners in our retiree population, so if they're making over $97,000 in adjusted gross income or $194,000 if married, they will pay a higher Part B premium, and that can range anywhere from $230 to over $560 a month. So that is important to note because they are paying that in addition to any contributions they make for Medicare retiree coverage that's offered through the state of Delaware. And then just to illustrate what the current Medic-Fill rates are, and again, these are the same premium rates that were in place for calendar year 2022. The State Employee Benefits Committee voted to continue these rates through December 31st of 2023. So special Medic-Fill members that are enrolled in the Medic-Fill with prescription plan are that total premium is $459.38. If the retiree retired on or before 7/1/2012 and is 100% vested, which means they had 20 or more years of state service, their share for that premium is set at 0. If the pensioner retired after 7/1/2012 and again is 100% vested, their premium share is 5%, which is currently $22.96. And then similarly, we do offer the Medical plan without the Part D prescription drug coverage. That premium is significantly less at $260.44. Similarly, those longer term retirees pay 0% for that premium. And those that retired after July of 2012 are paying $13 per month. And then moving along to slide 7, we did, again, just for full disclosure, wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of the breakdown of those 2 plan options that are currently in place and what that looks like for a retiree who may not be 100% vested for their healthcare benefits. Because as we have discussed in past conversations, those retirees are paying something less than or something more than the 0 or 5%, right? Depending on their vesting and their years of state service upon retirement. So that, you know, we do have a very small number of retirees that are receiving 0% state share subsidy for their enrollment in those plans. And in that situation, they're paying that full premium amount, and then that can tier up to 50 and 75 and 100%. We have in total about 2,500 Medicare pensioners who are paying something or who are receiving something less than 100% of state share. So moving along to the next slide, we did want to make the point that healthcare costs are increasing. And we have seen a significant increase in Medicare pensioner healthcare claims. So this would be, again, medical and prescription claims that have been paid by the state group health insurance plan. That has increased nearly 93% in the last 15 years. We, in 2008, paid $70.6 million. And in 2022, that increased to $132.8 million. So looking at that in a little shorter term, 10 years, we're looking at about a 53% increase. During that same period of time, there have been several efforts made by the State Employee Benefits Committee to try to manage those costs. The most notable being the move to the Medicare Part D prescription drug plan that we have in place today. That's often referred to in the marketplace as an employer group waiver plan. So you'll hear us use the acronym EGWIP, and that's what that stands for. The plan did move in fiscal year 14 to a Medicare Part D plan. And to Mr. Overley's comments earlier, that what that did is that enabled the state to take advantage of more subsidies and revenues back from the federal government for participants in the Medicare Part D plan. So it actually had a good short-term impact on reducing the drug costs for our Medicare retirees. And then most recently in fiscal year 2022, the SEBC, as a result of a request for proposals, did award the pharmacy benefit management services for both the commercial population, which is our active and non-Medicare participants, as well as the Medicare population. We moved from Express Scripts to CVS, and for the Medicare population, that went into effect on January 1st of 2022. So what I'd like to do now, Lieutenant Governor, if you're comfortable with this, we do have Secretary Geisenberger on the line. I'd like to ask him if he wouldn't mind perhaps walking through the next couple of slides. This is information that's been previously presented as part of the Retiree Benefits Study Committee work. Secretary Geisenberger, do we have you on the line?
If not, we'll come to him. We'll find him. We saw him earlier, and as she's going through, there you are. Are you there?
I am on the line. I'm in my car. I'm not driving now. So
Would
I'm
it
in
be
a park-
easier if I continue talking and then you can maybe.
You want her to talk and then you chime in?
No, I'm
She can go
fine.
over
I'm not,
slide.
I'm not driving. I'm in a parking garage.
We're on
So,
slide 9.
no, I can see the slide. So, uh, as Faith mentioned, there's been a group called the Retirement Benefits Study Committee. It's actually a group that was first created in 2006 that met for a while, made some recommendations. It was reconvened in 2019, and we had a number of public meetings. And, these are based on actuarial calculations that are done by a group called Chiron for the pension board each year. The current estimated liability for retiree healthcare benefits is $8.9 billion liability, expected to grow to $23.6 billion. So this is all predicated on an assumption that there's no changes in how retiree healthcare is funded, no changes in plan design, and no changes in eligibility over the next 20 years. To put these figures in perspective, and then if you go to the next line, you can look at how that liability has been funded. Sorry, not the next slide. Can you go back?
Yep.
So if you go to the next line, you can see the net unfunded liability. So only about $500 million of that liability has been funded. So the unfunded liability would also be expected to grow to $20.7 billion. What that number represents is an actuarial calculation of the benefits that would expect to be paid for all those people who are already retired, as well as an actuarial estimate of how many people will actually are current employees and what we would expect them to become eligible for based on actuarial assumptions of how many will actually reach 15 years or 20 years of service and that sort of thing. So just to put these numbers in perspective, this $8.4 billion unfunded liability, the current unfunded liability is for the pension fund is only about $1.5 billion. All of the state's debt combined is about $2.3 billion. That's all the debt for school construction, et cetera. So this number, not surprisingly, has drawn the attention of our bond rating agencies and others who are concerned about this amount of liability relative to the state's population, relative to the state's per capita income. One of the things the Retirement Benefits Study Committee looked at with respect to this particular issue was how we looked relative to all the other states and our liability relative to our population, relative to our per capita income, ranks in the bottom 5 states in the country. So that's obviously one of the reasons why we're here to discuss this. Next slide.
Secretary. Thank you. So I can take back over here at the next slide,
Okay.
Which has really been pivoting a bit from the OPEB liability and just sharing for the subcommittee where we stand with the group health insurance plan in terms of deficits as we look toward fiscal year 24. And the information actually on the slide was just presented to the State Employee Benefits Committee earlier this afternoon. So we just want to level set with the group as it relates to what we're projecting for real-time increases in healthcare for state of Delaware employees and retirees over the next couple of years. We're currently looking at a $140.5 million shortfall for the group health fund for the upcoming fiscal year. That will grow to $824.2 million by 2027. The SEBC is in active discussions on a premium rate increase for our employees and non-Medicare retirees that would go into effect for July 1st. That is ranging from 9.4% for a 1-year increase, for a 3-year increase that would occur each of the next 3 years, or potentially a 16.8% increase to fully fund that $140.5 million shortfall for one fiscal year. So more discussions and voting by the SEBC on March 20th on those rates that would go into effect, again, for active employees and non-Medicare retirees only for July 1st. But that deficit does include the additional expenses that we're projecting to provide the continued Medic-Fill coverage for the Medicare retirees, as well as the existing Part E prescription drug coverage. So just real quickly, because I know we're running close on time, you know, again, today is really just an introductory conversation. But we would like to suggest that as we continue discussions, that we collectively think about a combined solution that includes changes to both funding, plan design, and eligibility, because as Secretary Geisenberger explained, the larger issue here is certainly the large unfunded retiree healthcare liability, and a plan that includes both funding, plan design, and eligibility changes could potentially reverse those long-term trends and really have a meaningful impact on that unfunded liability, as well as ensuring sustainability of our retiree benefits well into the future. Okay, I think Representative Ramon may have a question.
Yep. Mike, Representative Ramon, you need to unmute. Oh. Not yet. We'll go to public comments a little later. Right now, we'll continue.
I'm sorry.
There you are. Go ahead.
Oh,
yep, we can hear you.
Connect. Thank you. My question is probably for the secretary. My biggest concern is I looked through a lot of the actuary numbers, and I'm just, you know, the average age expectancy has always gone up, and it's gone up all the way up until, of course, the results of COVID. In the last 2 years, it's starting to take a turn. Now, an actuary can keep the same trajectory, which it seems like that's what was on those bids. But the reality is, if that line turns, that's like multi-hundreds of millions of dollars if you redid the actuary as either a straight line or even a descending line. Has that been taken into consideration at all since the actuary work was done so long ago?
So the actuarial work is updated on an annual basis. So based upon all kinds of assumptions around life expectancy, interest rates, inflation rates, medical inflation rates. So it's looked at each year, and the most recent data I'm presenting is based on their report as of June 30th, 2022, which was approved by, or reviewed by the pension board at its October meeting.
Thank you. I just needed some clarity on that. I appreciate it, because I was looking at the number and trying to replicate it, and I couldn't get to the same. I thought yours was a little overstated, but I get it. All right, thank you.
Great, thanks.
All right, thank you, Secretary. So Lieutenant Governor, maybe perhaps in the interest of time, I know that it was important that we dedicate at least 4 to 4:30 of today's discussion to try to open up for public comment.
Yeah.
So perhaps I take a pause here. There are only 2 other slides remaining. I think certainly could be discussed at future meetings. We went into a little bit more detail on those different ways in which we could consider managing the unfunded liability. And we do have a little bit of information on what other states are doing, but we'd be happy to come back at a subsequent meeting and dive into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah. And if you want to flip back real quick, so those who maybe don't have the slides in front of them, so what we're going to skip over quickly in the interest of public comment, these were commentary that had been supplied before in the previous conversation. In the next slide, I think it was really important, and these are items that we can certainly delve into, set as part of the next agenda. These are certainly not every state in the US, but states that were comparative data points to begin to have conversation on who has Medicare Advantage, who has choice, who has HRAs, health savings accounts. And so before, if it's okay with everyone here and our co-chairs, what I'm hearing you say is we could delay some of this to the next meeting, have some conversation. And it was important because for us, and I know for our Secretary of HR, DeMattias, Director Kay, Secretary Geisenberg, and my co-chairs, it was important, this is a public meeting and for the intent of the bill sponsor, sitting to my left, he made it very clear, you know, he wanted to really make sure that retirees were heard. And we may not get through everybody today. We certainly recognize we're gonna have to maybe have some additional meetings and offline conversations. I think some really good questions were raised today with the representatives, your years of expertise on the pension fund. And I think we're gonna have a lot of work to do in the next couple of months. And Wayne, I know you had a few other questions that you delayed for us too, for the retirees. So before we go into, you want to go into public now, you want to just jump to the schedule? What do you think?
Certainly defer to.
Let's go to the schedule in case somebody has to roll. Yeah, and we'll get to those who have their hands up in a second. We're just going to jump unless it's dealing with the schedule. Again, we wanted to make sure folks had the opportunity. We're looking at tentatively mailing out a time range for committee members. And again, we'll make the hybrid option. So for example, I could be in a person or Senator Fenton, we at least have hybrid. So we're looking at these dates, March 16th, March 22nd, March 24th, and then the 27th, which is a pretty aggressive schedule concerning the members of the General Assembly and others. So I don't know if there's any thoughts from anyone.
Are you picking a date for that next meeting or are you?
The date.
Are you meeting those 4 times?
We're going to meet those 4 times. We're going to be very aggressive and have meetings. And we recognize if you are on travel and maybe we know sometimes you're in a room and you zoom in, maybe we can pick a timeline. You know, we're not going to nail down the hour right now with a group, but we can certainly lay those dates out because I think to the senator's point, we were just wanting to make sure folks know this is serious.
Yeah, I think because of the logistics of setting this up, we kind of like are a week or 2 later to start than we had hoped. And there's the May 1st, deadline to get recommendations or analyses to the General Assembly for purposes of budget markup to the extent anything we decide or look at or recommend. I shouldn't say decide, but recommend if it relates to the budget. That's a pretty tight timetable. I think the idea is that this is just March. There's still April to go as well, and we want to have an aggressive schedule that also takes into account the fact that if various members of the subcommittee and the departments they represent need to do homework and do data analysis and all that, like sometimes it might take more than just 2 or 3 days in between meetings. But we also know public comment is a key point. So I think we're trying to figure out, is it these 4 meetings? Is it 3 of the 4? And then lead into April. These were like quick thoughts we had about possible dates, obviously subject to subcommittee members' availability. Senator Governor Hall along made the point that the hybrid option, hopefully people can be available. But the idea is all 4 of these, maybe 3 of the 4, and then lead into April with, again, as aggressive a schedule as we need to have in order to do, really good data and policy analysis about what options we have before us.
And what you wrote in the code. And should we need, and I'm hoping that those listening in heard us say we're level setting, not going backwards, but certainly letting the public, have a moment of comment. And so if we can't always get everyone in, perhaps one of those dates sometime would be earmarked or set aside as necessary, if necessary.
Predominantly public comment.
Yeah. If necessary, yeah. Oh, look at Trini taking a picture. We'll get it to you. Yes. Wayne?
Would it be reasonable, I'm looking here at the duties, powers and functions. And there are 3 of them that are sort of topic oriented. Those are numbers 2, 3, and 4. So I'm wondering if maybe March 16th, we should focus on item number 2, which is analysis regarding Medicare Advantage. And then at the next meeting is the 22nd, do number 3, which is to study and evaluate and review other implications of extending the contract, the existing Medicare supplement. And then number 4, going into some other ways of doing things. I think that would sort of give us a somewhat of a framework to work from, at least to get us through. I don't think we're going to make a decision on number 2 at that first meeting, but we can certainly learn about it and use that as a framework for moving forward.
Is that enough timeline? I mean, we can modify some. I mean, I think we can go, Wayne, to your point, go behind the curtain. We'll talk to the team and the staff and determine. And there may be some things where we might want to offset because it's going to take a little longer, like looking at some of the other state options too, right? I think that was something that was important. That might be a little bit of a deeper homework dive.
I'm trying to set a pace.
Yeah.
I don't want us to get to April 20th and realize that we've got 3 more things to do here.
I don't think you have to worry about.
Oh, yeah, I don't think we have to worry about that part. And
No.
I guess what I'd say is that it's an elegant idea that, 1 meeting per task, but on the other hand, I'm not sure each task requires an entire meeting.
Okay.
I'll note very candidly, as one of the retiree representatives, if you would like an entire meeting on the Medicare Advantage, customized plan that had been developed, that's the fact that you're a retiree member who's saying, let's look into this, as opposed to a retiree member that's saying, hey, let's shred that idea and never talk about it again. I take that to heart. One of the slides that we had to postpone until next time talks about there are several states that offer choice between Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement. And to the extent we might head in that direction, then perhaps it is really helpful to spend some time taking a look at Medicare Advantage, because there might be a whole host of retirees who choose to go that path. So I'm not, and I know that Lieutenant Governor Hall and Representative Lombach are not like prejudging exactly where we head with all of this. And to the extent that Medicare Advantage is the topic, which is a federal term, by the way, the state didn't make it up. The state can't run from it. That we should all assume that name will continue to come up.
It's hard to see.
Yeah, exactly. So taking a look at it and really analyzing it could be a huge benefit to every member of the subcommittee who wants to try and find the right balance here. And if it takes an entire meeting, great. If it takes less than a meeting, great. I certainly don't know how to gauge that.
It would be nice to get one of these off the plate.
Right.
Sure.
One done.
Right.
To do that at the March 16th meeting, I'm all for
And
it.
we have some hands up. Jeff Tashner, Bill Oberly, and Mike Ramon, unless the other hands didn't go down before, and then we'll go to the public comment, certainly, and to Denise. We'll go to Jeff. So again, I'm starting with our committee members first, and we will go to the public. Go ahead.
And I'll be quick. The one thing I just want to put out, it's a little disheartening seeing AM times, because one of the things we hear is active employees also have an interest in the work of this subcommittee. And when we schedule these things during the workday, particularly during the school day, actively working educators can't observe this process. And we've heard from them that they would like to have that ability. So I would encourage those of you that are running this subcommittee to consider that and thinking about scheduling these meetings at times that are available so that as many people as possible can attend them.
Okay, you're talking like 3:30, 3 p.m. Is that right here?
I'm going to tell you, in our world, because we have secondary and elementary school teachers, elementary who tend to get out later, we try to not schedule things before 4:30 or 5. And that may be inconvenient for some of the committee members, but I think we need to be inconvenienced rather than other people being not included.
Thank you for that, and we will take that into consideration. For these first couple meetings, we may have to not be able to do this because of the schedule of work, but we certainly respect our active employees as well as the retirees. So thank you. Hands that had gone up, Representative Oberly and Representative Ramon. I don't know if your hands are up from before. Representative Oberly?
Yeah, I had, I guess, maybe a general comment. I guess given the fact that there is pending litigation, we have epilogue language in the FY24 budget. I'm wondering, are we really going to have an opportunity to delve into and analyze creative solutions that will reduce not only the OPEB liability, which I think we're all aware of, but also solutions that would not negatively impact retirees, current retirees. So, I mean, I just ask that in the context of the things that are swirling around this. I don't want to see this turn into an academic exercise of futility. So I just wanted to put that on the record and see if there's any response.
None of us want that. So go ahead, no exercise of futility.
I think it's a great question, and it would be a bit remiss if I didn't call out that I believe it was Representative Brombach who asked a similar question as it relates to really what can we do and what are we permitted to change as it relates to the Medicare retiree coverage, recognizing there's still some ongoing litigation. And I think in response to that, what I would say is obviously the outcomes of the latest filings in the courts have to be determined before we could actually move forward with implementing changes to coverage for Medicare retirees. But I don't believe, and again, we have Stacy Stewart from DOJ on the line, and she could certainly, kind of dispute me if she feels differently. But I don't see where the pending litigation would prohibit this group from having conversations and exploring options and getting feedback and input from the public and potentially working towards consensus on a future solution.
So the timing, Bill, right? There's not an issue. So Bill, we've got to keep working, it sounds like, and not into fertility. Can't even talk this afternoon. All right, let's see. Denise had her hand up, and then Mike Bogato, and Representative Ramon. I'm sorry. Was your hand still up from before?
Do we have
I guess not. Yep. All right, if not, we'll go to Denise, then we'll go to Mr. Bogato. And the Gallaghers are a part of the public. I promise we will get to you when we get to the public. Denise.
So I quickly want to just address, I've had some people reach out and then I've read it myself that, one of the things that inserted into that budget epilogue was that that if the court comes back and favors that we take the Medicare Advantage, that this is all null and void. Is that true? Is that what's going to happen? I just want to make sure that I speak for some of these people that have come up and myself as well. I'm not just saying just them.
Director Kate or Secretary DeMatteis, would you want to comment on that? Because I believe that question that Denise is asking is specific to the epilogue language that was put in the governor's recommended budget bill.
So I don't know if Secretary DeMatteis, if you heard the question, or if Director Kate, you heard the question. They're there. They had been here. Uh-oh. We'll
This is
get
Clara.
that back.
I certainly heard
Go
the
ahead.
question. I just didn't know if Director Cade wanted to talk about it since it's in the budget. If not, I'll take it. Serrano, you still on?
Probably not at all.
Yeah, the epilogue language doesn't say that if the Supreme Court rules or overturns, I guess is a better word to say, the Superior Court ruling, that Medicare Advantage goes in effect.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does.
No, so I'm not going to debate it on this call. It's not what it says. What it reflects is that there's a legally binding contract with Highmark. That's what it reflects, and it reflects what was in the current year fiscal year budget. It's all it reflects. It's not supposed to be a commentary on how the court rules.
All right, got that. Next hand that was up was Mike Bogato. Michael, you got to unmute. Denise, we got your question. Your hand's still up, Denise, too. All right, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'm here. My question was, I guess similar. We have a 3-year contract with Highmark. If the court rules that the state can go ahead and proceed, will that be what happens July 1st if the court decides for that new budget? And then what would the function of this committee be at that point?
Did you hear him?
I think it was, what would the function be? It's a court. In other words, if the section 101 is acted upon, why are we meeting? I think is what he was saying.
It doesn't necessarily, and this is just speaking from Director Prince's point of view, it doesn't change the directive of this subcommittee as established in Senate Bill 29. Correct. The contract for the Medicare Advantage plan was suspended for 1 year. There have been no additional discussions with Highmark about what would happen, in terms of after December 31st of 2023, right? We've had zero discussions about that. So that presents an opportunity for this subcommittee to work with the retirees to explore and discuss other options that may ultimately include continuing to move forward with the Medicare Advantage plan. But I do want to call out, there was one specific part of that agreement with Highmark on the implementation of that plan, the proposal was premised upon Highmark providing that plan to all Medicare retirees, right? So we have to be mindful that if there are multiple options, it is not just Medicare Advantage, that would require renegotiating contract terms with Highmark, potentially going back out to bid for that product or other products, depending again, ultimately on recommendations that would go up to the full SEBC for consideration.
Okay, Mike, I think you've got your questions answered. Yep, Representative Ramon, if you have any more, go ahead, sir. Oh, you've got to unmute. No, he put his hand down. Senator Pettyjohn, you're shaking your head no, which means you don't want to talk at the time. Okay, Representative Oberly, do you still have anything? I still call him representative. He was a senior member with me. Anything? Okay. If not, it looks like we may be to the public. We have public members here. We have public online. Go ahead, ma'am.
We do, and Lieutenant Governor, I will ask for your consideration on how you would like to handle the length of time for public comment. What we did share with subcommittee members and members of the public specific to today's meeting, it's obviously open for discussion how we will handle public comment input for future meetings, but we did ask that we follow the State Employee Benefits Committee's protocol, which is 3 minutes per individual. We would take pre-registered public comment first, and then we would follow by taking public comment from anyone that's here in the room and then opening up to any additional comments. We did indicate that the meeting was scheduled to end at 4:30, but we were also trying to begin public comment at 4 o'clock. So I would defer to you on the time frame that you would want to provide or allow public comment today.
I mean, I don't know the other staff in the room, and if other people have to go, I mean, I can sit here myself for the time that's necessary till 4:45, but I don't want public to think you're not going to have a chance to speak. I know it was very important to the co-chairs that public be heard. And so if it needs that one of those dates in March needs to be just dedicated to public comment, we can then do so. But I'm hoping that once people hear what we're about today, we're rebooting and we're really looking at things that might change the tenor too, and that retirees have been heard. And that is why we're here having these meetings, because it's Senate Bill 29. So why don't we see how many comments do we have? Okay, so I have 2 pre-registered, and then if anybody's here with comment, was Mr. Gallagher pre-registered?
They were not.
They were not. Okay.
So we'll
Madam
start.
Chair.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I think there's
Yeah.
side discussion that's going on and we can't, it's hard for us to hear what's going on with the side discussion that's going on back there as well.
Sorry, we didn't even notice. You know, I'm so used to being in the General Assembly with you, where you're so noisy, I didn't even notice. That's so
Thanks.
bad. Sorry, and nobody's in trouble here. That's fine. But we will make sure to pay attention to that in the future, sir.
So Lieutenant Governor,
Yes.
with that input, thank you. We'll pivot to those who have pre-registered for today's public comment. We only have 2 individuals who have pre-registered, so we'll start with Stephen LePage.
Yes, we'll do that. And to the Gallaghers who are here, I know them, you know, they certainly can even stay and talk to me after if there's not time. I always like people to think they're heard.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
So Mr. LePage, you have 3 minutes to provide public comment this afternoon.
Oh, are you there? You got
Can you
time.
hear me?
Yes. Yep, we can. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. Can you hear us?
Yes. I'm Stephen LePage. From my understanding, DHR and SEBC were given an hour to brief the legislature. They also had considerable time to present to this subcommittee. In contrast, the people who these decisions affect were given 1 minute to speak to the Senate, 2 minutes to speak to the House, and now 3 minutes to speak in this forum. I guess
This day,
that's
sir,
progress.
not to interrupt you, but this day, we're gonna have more time for you. Go ahead.
Okay, I guess that's progress, but that is simply not enough time to effectively communicate on a complicated issue like this one. The presentation shown today from the SEBC show that retirees contributed $600,000, 0.6 million in the chart. I believe that is low. It is much more than that, and estimated that retirees contributed nearly 6.2 million. You were shown the unfunded liability of 8.4 billion for FY22. What is not shown is the FY21 unfunded liability of 10.1 billion. That was a drop in the OPEB unfunded liability of approximately $2 billion and a decrease of 17% from 21 to 22. I will be emailing a link for an online presentation to the members of this committee. Hopefully you will have a better understanding after viewing the online presentation, which is annotated from the presentation provided today, and some associated audio to explain things on the presentation to try to make it clear. The other slide makes a point that you support the SEBC. That is not correct. This group was put together to report to the legislature and the governor, not the SEBC. I thank you for your time and hope you do view the presentation that I emailed to you. And for the other person to ask about how much the prescription was, it's about 65 to 66 million.
Thank you, Mr. LePage. Our next pre-registered public comment speaker is Diana Noonan.
Hi, my name's Diana Noonan. My husband and I have read the contract that the state has with Highmark, and we have read the booklet, and we feel that this proposal for Medicare Advantage would be a life-changing situation for us. The Medicare Advantage plan proposed by the state does not meet the standards of care for Title 18 of the Delaware Insurance Code, nor the mandate from the Delaware Superior Court. Medicare Advantage is nothing but a privatization of the federal Medicare program, placing a private insurance company in between the retiree and their Medicare plan. Currently, between Medicare and our Medifill, we pay nothing for services like hospital stays. My husband just had a minor surgery and the medical bill was $5,000. Under Medicare Advantage, we would be expected to meet the cost sharing that is proposed of 30%, according to the presentation I witnessed in January at the SEBC meeting. That 30% or $1,500 would be out of pocket for us, but it would be paid at 80% by Medicare, and then 20% would be covered Medifill, and we would have no charge. The consultant giving the presentation said the 30% coinsurance is based on Utah's plan. I called the Utah Secretary of Health, and they do not have a flat 30% coinsurance. Each county in Utah regulates their own insurance services, and they can vary from 10 to 30% by county. Also, Utah does not meet the guidelines of Title 18, which states plans should meet the equality and requirements of surrounding states. Medicare recently published a study of best and worst states for elderly health care in America. Utah came in at 14th and Delaware at 41st. The Medicare Advantage plan is no advantage. Retirees needing multiple procedures could end up owing thousands of dollars within a short period of time. Retirees would likely have to put off procedures that would greatly impact their health and welfare due to a lack of their ability to pay unreasonable and unnecessary charges. Retirees now pay a monthly fee for Medicare directly from our Social Security. Though we pay for Medicare, Medicare Advantage does not allow coverage for many procedures and benefits that are listed as covered within Medicare. The Medicare booklet clearly states that any medical plan, such as Medicare Advantage, must provide equal coverage. The Medicare Advantage plan takes away coverages under Medicare, cost us more than the 20% copay covered by the Medifill plan. So we are not only losing our Medifill, which between Medicare and Medifill cover almost everything at 100%, we are left open to thousands of dollars a year in copays and coinsurance. We work for the state. We did not make a lot of money. We did not plan for this. We are not prepared for this. This plan will cost the health or the life of seniors that were dedicated to the state of Delaware and do not deserve this treatment. The state knew for 18 years that they were not paying into this plan. It's no surprise. Please take responsibility and do the right thing. It's not ethical or moral to place this burden totally at the feet of the elderly population.
Noonan, you're at time.
Excuse me?
You're at time. Thank you for your comments today.
Up here? Anybody?
Do we have anyone participating in
the audience today?
Okay,
the audience.
All right, we're going to move to public comment from participants joining virtually today.
Yeah. And we're kind of making that.
And it looks like we could start with Ms. Gallagher?
Okay. And again, you know, for those, yeah, we're making that exception for those who weren't pre-registered. We want to make sure you're heard. Hi to the Gallaghers.
Hi, I'm going to be speaking to, I'm Judy Gallagher. I've worked in the Alfred I. DuPont district starting in 72 all the way till I retired in 2011. And I gave my body and heart and soul to the special ed kids that I taught. Anything I'm reading about Medicare Advantage is that it is not Medicare. Medicare specifically says Medicare Advantage is not. It's a separate plan. And then if you decide that you want to come back, you're going to have to go through a procedure to come back in. Actuarial, when I saw that line going up, straight up, I laughed to myself. And I'm 76. I've got all kinds of autoimmune problems brought on by COVID. So I have lupus, I have rheumatoid arthritis, I've had knee surgery, all kinds of heart problems, hearing aids, visual problems brought on by the medicine Plaquenil or hydrocortisone. Yeah, the one that Trump was having everybody use, and I had trouble getting it from the doctor, and that's the one that keeps me alive. But, you know, many things. I'm having knee surgery coming up, and I get frequent PT, which is very important. My heart doctor says this, family doctor says this. It's keeping me walking and it's keeping me going physically. So if I don't get the PT as much as I need it, my body's going to stop and I'm going to be in a wheelchair. Also, I have a wonderful team of doctors, about 10 doctors that I work with. One in Philadelphia, my rheumatologist, she's in charge of the clinic. I've dropped doctors that were not any good, that didn't relate with me or weren't, I felt on top of their specialty. And there's so much changing in the autoimmune world today. I mean, every day there's a new thing. I have part of the lupus is losing hair. And at first they were saying, oh no, you don't have, what did they call that, Tom?
Alopecia.
Alopecia.
Alopecia, thank you. And I said, yes, there is. Today they're listing, lupus alopecia as one of the many things. There are so many problems. And they say that if Medicare Advantage gets their hands on you, your data, they're going to suck out all your medical history. Like if you went to a psychiatrist 50 years ago, they will add it onto your thing and make you add more to your bill. I know we're going to have a long session ahead of us to work on this. Thank you. And Diane, wonderful comments.
Thank you. Right on time. And I've asked the staff who are here, and if any of the other committee members have to leave, we understand. They're able to stay 15 minutes longer. So as discretion as the chairperson, I want to make sure those who are here with the public are heard. Some of you, perhaps if we don't get to you today, we will make sure to get written comment and then to have you back. And we, like I said, may be entertaining additional meetings. So again, to anyone that needs to go, we understand it's almost 4:30. And we'll just go in the order in which I see the names. With you, Faith, I see Joan Burnside and then Karen Peterson in that order. And then we'll see how long they go. Okay, go ahead.
It's like Linda Hastings.
And Linda Hastings. Well, I'll let you guys are the experts at this. Go ahead, you do that. I'm used to having live people or the Zoom in the center, so go ahead.
Okay, we're gonna actually call on Linda Hastings to provide public comment next.
And be mindful, we're adding these times in, so if everybody doesn't get to talk today, we're gonna have more time. Go ahead.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
we can.
Okay, I'm Linda Hastings, and I appreciated Mike Bagato asking the question if about the Medicare contract and what's the point of the committee if the contract's there and still legally binding. I think that's important. I would also say that as long as HB 75 still has the language that directs the Department of Human Resources to work within the terms of the medical third-party administrator RFP and execute contracts, we're still under that Medicare Advantage threat. So until and unless that gets removed from what's currently in the budget, you're going to keep hearing from all of us about this because it's still a threat to us. That's the only thing that's in the budget to be passed. You got to take that out. Some of the legislators, you got to take that out. And until it comes out, it's in. That's not good for us. We're watching and we don't want to get fooled again. I'd like to reiterate that those of us who retired with this health plan and made plans around it, some of which are irrevocable for us, and now getting into Medicare Advantage is going to be a big problem that we can't fix. That's not good. We don't want it. And I also have a concern about some of the fiscal assumptions that you've made. I know that there are these auditors who are doing an annual assessment of how much money we're going to cost, and maybe they're right, but here's what I know. That you get quarterly reports from Willis Towers Watson, WTW, on how much overrun there is from our contracts, and they're using data that's 11 years out of date. And they put it in a footnote so they won't be legally responsible for getting blamed for it. They're using data that doesn't count the fact that since 2012, retirees since then have been paying some towards their Medicare. They don't include that in the data that they produce. And if the accountants who are figuring out costs into the future are using their data has been wrong for 11 years. And they put it in their footnotes. So I've already talked to some of the members of your committee who understand about this. You guys need to fix that and figure out how that impacts the numbers you're going to be looking at. Okay, thanks for taking my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Hastings. Okay.
You had Joan Burnside and Karen Peterson is what popped up on mine.
I have Karen Peterson next, she's number 2.
Say it louder.
Karen Peterson?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I would like to follow up on something that Mr. LePage said a little bit earlier, and that is that we've been given a grand total of 3 minutes to comment on this entire issue. We got 1 minute in the Senate and 2 minutes in the House of Representatives. This is a huge issue, and a number of us have spent hundreds of hours working since last year to understand these numbers, and we would like an opportunity to present our findings to you. I wrote to each member of this committee yesterday and asked if you would set aside the first half hour of the March 22nd meeting so that we can make a presentation on what we found. And we're glad to document those findings at that time. So I would like to at least have an answer on that, yes or no, so that we can prepare for that. The other thing I'd like to just ask Ms. Rentz a question about an earlier question that Mr. Tashner raised, and that was on page 5 of the handout. And his question was about the costs. The cost that, went down the first column for actives, pre-Medicare and Medicare retirees. And then he said, well, you have to add those costs to the second column, the premiums. And you said yes. Is that correct? Or the premiums subtracted from the first column? My understanding was the first column was the total, but they were offset by the premiums paid. Is that?
About that one.
Which one's correct? Or
I
the
don't know.
premiums?
You know what? I think Senator Peterson, I think what we'll do during the public comment period would be taking your comment. And then what I would like to do either offline or when you present at a future date, have the opportunity to have that dialogue. But thank you for that question.
So I don't get an answer. Is that the answer?
No, you will get an answer,
I mean, it's a simple question.
In the interest of everyone being heard, perhaps do you want to do it?
We've not had any other opportunity to have a conversation.
Okay,
with you,
I gotcha.
so this
Okay.
is it.
All right.
As an exception, we will provide a response during public comment to Senator Peterson's question, which was discussed in detail during the discussion. There is a cost column that at the top for State of Delaware Group Health Insurance Plan reflects 1.2 billion. That is the total amount of premiums that were collected by the group health insurance plan in fiscal year 22. That number was derived by adding the state's contribution towards those premiums that are listed in the cells that follow directly beneath the 1.2, which is 115.8, 132.8, and 647.1. The total of those three, along with the plan participants' premium contributions, which total 163.7, that is the cell directly to the right of the 1.2 billion, those four cells total together round up to 1.2 billion. We will be happy to illustrate the slide differently in discussion at a subsequent meeting.
We'll do a subsequent.
But in the interest of time and giving others the opportunity to provide comment, I'd like us to move on, and thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep, you're welcome. And then we'll follow up. I didn't see your email yet, but I'm aware that there's interest in additional public comment and presentation. Okay, you're welcome. Go ahead.
Yep, so next I have is Joan Burnside.
Can you hear me?
Joan, yep, we can hear you.
Joan Burnside, a UD retiree. I live out of state, and my question, just a quick question, of the 30,000 or so retirees that are on the medical plan, how many live out of state and are likely going to be out of network? And how will this fulfill the contract to provide equal care to retirees? That's it.
Good question.
Thank you. Next I have is Sam Gartner.
That's you.
Thank you.
Are you unmuted?
I have 1 minute.
You unmuted.
I'm unmuted.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Could you tell me what's going to happen in terms of as you conceive it between now and the next meeting? And who's going to do it? A second part is, if we are locked in, at least it's my understanding from what I think I heard, that we're locked into Highmark for 2024, have they already costed out a number of the alternatives that are mentioned in the presentation today? And if they haven't, are they willing to?
Very good questions. For those who are not familiar, we usually take down questions and comments and then take those back into our working groups, and we'll come forward hopefully at our next meetings and answer some questions that are relevant.
So we don't know if they're willing to?
We will be able to answer questions in the future meetings. Right now during public comment, I know it seems strange, it's public comment without always being able to respond immediately, because we don't have all the people that have all the immediate responses in the room. Senator Peterson was a little bit of an exception. Go ahead. Anybody else?
Yep, so the, is he finished with his
Yeah.
comment?
Have you finished? Thank you, Sam. We will take your questions into consideration and answer them. Very good comments and good questions.
Yep, so I have Kathleen Werrell. Is that right?
Kathleen, if you had *6 if you're on
Okay.
the phone.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
You are?
I worked 20 years at the University of Delaware, retiring in 2016. And at the time I retired, I was fully assured that I would have excellent health care coverage, and it has been excellent between Medicare and Highmark. It's good thing it's been excellent, because last July I was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, and I've had surgery to implant a shunt, and I have done 20 sessions of PT. That's not cheap either. And I know I face a lot more in the future. So I'm very concerned, having spoken with healthcare professionals, including a relative who's in the healthcare field, and heard horrible things about Medicare Advantage. And I'm very, very concerned about the way it's looking right now. So I would love to have some reassurance that I will continue to have excellent health care. And if that means you go out to bid, which I don't think is a bad thing, give Highmark some competition. There is Aetna, whatever. Let's get some competition and continue to have excellent health care. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for now. Okay, so for the next meeting, you have some items for the agenda. If we complete what we didn't complete today, which is what looking at high level what some of the other states have, unless we want to begin to go in that direction. I know Wayne had mentioned items. Does anyone have, who are part of the committee, Mike, Bagato's hands up? Sir, did you have, Mike, did you have something for the agenda?
No. My question is, those questions that were asked, Faith, are you going to respond to them before the meeting? Or next meeting?
Some we will, he wants to know about responding to questions.
And then the request of Senator Peterson to set aside time for a formal presentation. Who's going to make that decision?
You were muffled. I felt like you were in a fish tank.
Lieutenant Governor, I think he was asking if you would be so inclined as to give the subcommittee your input on whether or not Senator Peterson's request would be accommodated for the next meeting, or I think
For the date, she said that
she said the 22nd, yeah.
At some point, and Senator, I mean, I think that we can certainly, as I talk to my co-chairs, I know Senator Townsend's now in his car. Representative Bombach is here. There have been discussion about opportunity for additional presentation. And I believe that that date may very well work. I don't know. I don't want to lock in without conferring. Number one, if we even have a quorum for those dates, we just put those dates out there. So we need to confer, will we have a quorum? Can people participate? Is that the right date? So I don't want to falsely say there will be a date when there may not be. So let's get that. Senator Pettyjohn, did you have thoughts or Representative Bett?
Just real quick, Madam Chair, I see one of the retirees. I don't think this young lady knows how to use the raise hand function, so she's actually raising her hand. Yeah, so yeah, if you could let her in there, please.
Yes, we will. And again, to the kind staff who begged to be allowed to stay a little longer.
And actually, if I may interject, but yes, we will give Rebecca Scarborough 3 minutes for public comment. But I also, before you begin your comment, I do want to make note and inform the subcommittee members that we did receive an email on Sunday from Rebecca Scarborough, which we will make sure is distributed to all subcommittee members. Rebecca, if you would like to go ahead and provide your 3 minutes, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware we did get your email.
Yeah. Thank you. The hand doesn't show up on this little thing at the beyond this public comment thing. So I don't know where the hand is on my
You
computer.
will be the last person to get to comment just because the staff have graciously stayed an extra 15. So anyone else will put you in a future meeting or written comment.
Yeah, well, I won't take a lot of time. My question was, what would happen? What does happen when you send in a written comment, which I did on Sunday, to both the SEBC meeting today and today's subcommittee meeting? And when do the committee members get those written comments? I didn't want to take up a lot of time. That was
That's a very good question, and that's something we'll discuss it as a subcommittee.
Okay, because I really would like them to get it before their meetings.
Sure.
Do you know what I'm saying? And my other comment is about this extension of the contract. Now that I've heard some of this discussion, isn't there a way that you could cancel that contract and pay a fine? I don't think it's more than a couple $1,000 so that we could really start afresh. I thought I had read that somewhere. So maybe you want to take that into consideration. Yeah, and I am anxious to find out more about the true funding situation, because there are several questions about that. Thank you. I won't take up a lot of time, but for some reason, that little box under my scroll does not show a hand raised thing, and I don't know what's wrong, whether it's my computer or the program. I saw it before, but it's not there now.
Okay,
The
that's
black
fine.
box.
And then, thank you. Thank you. We'll make sure, and that's a good question that we'll work out on the inner workings.
Yeah, the black
Representative Overly-
box. Mhm,
Yep.
thank you.
Representative Overly, I think your hand is up and you're a member of the subcommittee. Did you have a comment as we look at the agenda? Or did he put his hands up? Oh, yeah.
Yes, well, I do have a question as it relates to staffing. Will we have access to an actuary to look at actuarial tables if
Yes.
there is some alternate solution put forth?
Bill, this is Faith. It's a great question. And to clarify for all subcommittee members, clearly we're going to need to circulate the dates that were in the slide deck this afternoon, as well as a list of topics for your input. We'll do that this week. But to answer the question specifically, it is our intent that yes, we will have the healthcare consultants and actuaries supporting the agenda items once we know what those agenda items are. So the intent is that they would definitely play an active part in these discussions moving forward.
Absolutely gonna need that. And so I thank you all. You're gonna circulate dates, time, Wayne?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a comment at the next meeting, whenever that might be.
Sure.
Thank you. I
Absolutely.
would
Thank you for delaying today. I
Not a
know.
problem. I would estimate 10 minutes.
Yes, and for those who did not get heard today, again, we want you to know your comments are important, and we're going to make sure to have more ample time. And that's why today we did 45 minutes. So I think this is probably the longest comment period we've had of any public meeting that's been almost equivalent to the agenda, to make sure everyone that could be heard was heard. So Faith, why don't you give us directions from here?
I think at this point, again, the benefits office will circulate dates and potential agenda items to the subcommittee members this week so that we can coordinate those dates. And as soon as those are set, we will certainly post and make publicly available that information, including the dates, times, locations. But I think at this point, we are ready for a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned to adjourn. As our subcommittee is hereby adjourned. Again, for those who maybe had questions or want to provide testimony, please make sure we get you signed up and we'll figure out a continued process. Thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it. Representative Bombach, thank you. Get well.